Okay, let's unpack this.
Right.
You've sent over some really fascinating material about this group, the Cassiopaeans.
Hmm.
So for this deep dive, we're looking into who they supposedly are, how this info is said to have come about, and, the core claims.
Yeah.
We've got stuff describing contact, first via a Ouija board, then later, apparently, computer methods. Mostly linked to Laurinite Jadzik.
That's the primary narrative, yes. And the connection to the raw material is also noted.
Yes, the raw material. Similar themes there, right? Higher consciousness, cosmic stuff.
Exactly. So our mission here, really, is to pull out the most, intriguing and central parts of this belief system for you, the listener.
Okay, so starting with the contact itself,
Yeah.
the Ouija board aspect is, classic in some ways.
It is. What's interesting as the material presents it is that alleged shift
Right.
from the Ouija board, quite a traditional, almost mystical tool, to computer-based methods later on. And Laurinite Jadzik's role seems pretty central in sort of popularizing all this.
That shift is curious. Does it change how people view the source, maybe? From something mystical to something tech-based?
That's a great question. It potentially raises questions about, the perceived nature of the contact. Is it spirit? Is it something else?
And the information itself. It's pretty wide-ranging, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. The messages, as they're presented, form this really comprehensive cosmic story.
Cosmology, physics.
Right. Discussions of reality, dimensions, time. They even talk about higher dimensional densities.
That phrase pops up elsewhere too, doesn't it? In other esoteric sort of teachings.
It does, though the specifics here, the mechanism, aren't always detailed in the material we looked at.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're painting a really big picture.
It feels like a pattern with some channeled material, this grand scope.
I think so. There's often this desire for, a grand unifying theory of everything, including the spiritual, understanding our place.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop at cosmology. The material also gets into history, claims about lost civilization.
Atlantis, Lemuria, that kind of thing.
Potentially, those sorts of ideas. And predictions. Future cataclysms, earth changes.
Okay.
Which then ties into teachings about spiritual development, self-awareness, consciousness. It suggests this sort of cyclical view of history tied up with personal growth.
Though the specifics of that growth might be a bit vague in the source texts.
Sometimes, yeah. It's often more about the framework than detailed how-to guides, at least in the sections we reviewed.
So building on that big cosmic picture, it then zooms in a bit, more earthly stuff.
Exactly. And this is where, for many people, it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The Cassiopaean material apparently takes existing conspiracy theories and weaves them in or expands on them.
So it's not just philosophy from the stars, it's also about alleged secrets down here.
Precisely. Which you could argue might be part of its appeal.
How so?
Well, if you're already familiar with certain conspiracy ideas, this material can feel like a bridge.
Yeah.
It sort of validates those existing suspicions, but puts them in a much larger cosmic context.
Ah, I see. It leverages what people might already be thinking.
Potentially. A key theme that comes up is this idea of alien manipulation.
Okay.
Different ET factions influencing humanity, and the Cassiopaeans are positioned as offering maybe guidance or warnings about this.
So adding an alien layer to power struggles on Earth.
Sort of. It cosmicizes terrestrial conflicts, in a way.
And then there are the hidden rulers.
Claims about secret groups controlling world events, insights into their supposed agendas. That's a classic conspiracy trope, of course.
Right, but here maybe with an alleged extraterrestrial angle in some interpretations.
That seems to be part of the narrative, yes.
Could that layering, though, the piling on of conspiracies, be seen as a weakness by some? Too much.
That's a really interesting point. For someone already deep in that worldview, it might actually strengthen it, make it seem more coherent, more explanatory.
Ah, right. Everything connects.
But for someone more skeptical, yeah, absolutely. It could just seem like an accumulation of unsubstantiated claims, stretching things too far.
Makes sense.
Then you've got the predictions again, Earth changes, cataclysms.
Right.
With alleged info on how to survive or prepare, which adds, a sense of urgency, personal relevance.
And that ties into the last major theme you mentioned, this sort of cosmic battle.
Yeah, basically a narrative of good versus evil on a cosmic scale. Humanity's caught in the middle.
And the Cassiopaeans provide the knowledge needed to navigate this struggle.
That's the gist of it. It gives a sense of purpose, significance within this huge cosmic drama.
It's a very dramatic framework.
It is. So, okay, let's talk about the basis for all this, the evidence.
Yeah, what is the evidence presented?
Well, primarily, it's the channeled messages themselves.
Transcripts.
Exactly. Believers often interpret them as being incredibly consistent, profound, internally coherent. It's kind of an internally referential system.
That's a good way to put it. And personal experiences, testimonials.
Those are definitely cited too. People claiming the material resonated deeply, changed their lives, gave them understanding. These subjective accounts are powerful.
For the people involved, absolutely. It validates the experience.
It does. And it highlights how important that feeling of personal validation is in forming and holding beliefs, finding answers that feel right. And there are also attempts, you see this sometimes, to link the Cassiopaean stuff with other teachings.
Other spiritual systems, alternative theories.
Yeah, trying to find corroboration, points of overlap. For some, finding those connections strengthens their belief in the Cassiopaean material itself.
But as you said, it really comes down to interpretation, doesn't it? Through the lens of your existing beliefs.
Absolutely crucial. The meaning someone finds often depends heavily on the framework they bring to the material.
So if the evidence is mainly internal, mainly subjective, how do believers typically handle outside skepticism? You know, people asking for hard proof.
That's a key question in studying any belief system like this. Often, external skepticism might be framed within the system itself.
How do you mean?
Like skepticism might be seen as a sign of not being spiritually ready, or being closed off to higher realities, or even being influenced by those negative forces mentioned earlier.
Ah, okay. So the skepticism itself gets incorporated.
Sometimes. Or believers might just point to the internal consistency, the profundity they perceive, or those powerful personal experiences as their form of validation. Proof that doesn't need, or maybe can't have, external scientific backing.
Right. Okay, so let's pivot then. Let's look at some of the critical perspectives, the challenges.
The most obvious one, from a mainstream viewpoint, is the lack of verifiable evidence.
Scientific, historical.
Exactly. The cosmology doesn't align with current physics. The historical claims don't match archaeology or historical records. The predictions often haven't panned out or are too vague to verify.
And the whole method channeling, that's inherently difficult to verify, isn't it?
Hugely. The reliability of any channeled information is a major point of scrutiny because you simply cannot independently confirm the source.
You're relying entirely on the channeler's claims about who or what they're contacting.
Correct. Which leads to the next point. The channelers themselves.
Their own influence.
Yes. The potential for the channeler's own beliefs, their subconscious thoughts, their knowledge, their psychological state, all of that could influence the content, maybe unconsciously.
It's like a filter, right? Everything comes through that individual.
Potentially, yes. And like pretty much any large body of channeled work, if you dig into the Cassiopaean material, critics point out apparent logical inconsistencies or factual inaccuracies within the messages themselves.
Which can undermine the claims of profound, consistent wisdom.
It can, for those looking critically. And finally, there are psychological explanations.
Alternatives to accepting the source at face value.
Right. Things like dissociation, where parts of the mind operate somewhat independently.
Yeah.
Or subconscious expression. Maybe the messages are elaborate constructs of the channeler's own unconscious mind, not an external entity.
So internal psychological processes rather than external contact.
That's the alternative perspective offered by psychology, yeah.
Okay, so wrapping this up. This deep dive, it really shows a complex belief system. You've got cosmology, history, spirituality, these conspiracy theories, all supposedly coming through channeled communication.
Quite a tapestry.
Yeah. And while, you know, the claims don't have that mainstream scientific validation, and there are all these critical points we just discussed, it really does highlight this enduring human fascination, doesn't it? With the unexplained, the search for deeper meaning, for answers beyond the everyday.
Absolutely. That drive seems fundamental.
So, reflecting on all this, what stands out most to you? And maybe, what further questions does it spark about belief itself?
What really stands out to me is just how powerful the human need is to create these big, elaborate stories, these frameworks to try and answer the really fundamental questions.
About existence, our place in it all.
Exactly. Even when, or maybe especially when, those frameworks operate outside conventional evidence. It makes you wonder about the psychological functions, the social functions these belief systems serve. Why do these particular kinds of narratives resonate so strongly with some people? That's what I'm left pondering.